Hey, what's up, my tribe? Who's out there? Sorry to move the time today. Anyway, I'm going to get started because I have a lot to tell you guys. And I figure a lot of you probably watched the replay. Weird storms come through, so if we lose power, I'll be switching to my iPhone, which I have ready to go, and trying that out. And I have like a little lamp, so we'll see, because we lost power not that long ago. But I heard something earlier today. I thought this was so good, and this guy talked about how he gave the illustration of weeds and grass, and he said, when you're trying to get your lawn to grow, and weeds and grass take the same two things to grow, right? And it's water and soil. And so in the same, fear and faith both take the same thing. It takes uncertainty to grow. Both of those takes uncertainty, and it depends on, they both grow. So what do you have to do? You have to pluck out the weeds. You have to pluck out all those things that are fearful and prune through those things. And I thought that was a really good illustration that I've never heard before. And I think it's relevant to us, and especially during this time, that, we have choices to have either one, but both are probably going to grow. And my heart goes out to you guys, because I realize that, I'm a single person, and, I have to just worry about myself. And I realize that a lot of you have families to worry about. A lot of you have so many more components and fears out there than even I do. And if I'm battling from time to time fear and uncertainty during this time, that there's so much more that you are. And I just want you to know that I do care, and that my heart feels for you deeply, and you have my thoughts often. And so, hello, Craig. How are you? Thanks for joining. Anyway, but if you're experiencing a lot of fear during this time, know that that's okay, because it's given. We're going to experience fear. At the same time, we're going to have that fear and the faith are going to grow together. It's what we do with both of them. And we want to make sure we're plucking out the fear and not plucking out the faith, and not destroying our faith that we could have, that we can change things so that things can happen. And so, I was making sure there's something. I have my glasses on. I couldn't see what your comment was. So I want you to really think about that. And today, I'm going to dig deep into fear and some current research I've been doing on it. And so we kind of get a grasp on what actually fear is, and what happens to our body and our brains when we go into a state of fear, and then how we can change that, and how we can actually move to that place of faith rather than abiding in that fear. And I think there's a lot of practical things we can do, but I think also the knowledge behind it of what's going on is also power for us, because then we can understand what's actually going on, and we can say, okay, this is what's happening, and this is what I can do about it. So many times, I think we're provided with the things to do without the understanding and the capabilities of the understanding. I want to provide you with that understanding. And so I want to go over that today. And then I have 40 things that you can do when anxiety hits. Just some practicalities you could take with you, or just some things that you could do, or you can even choose some of them, maybe post them at home for your kids, because I'm sure your kids might be experiencing some anxiety too right now. Depends. Sometimes kids seem like they're, they don't really realize what's going on, or they're still all carefree because they're out of school, right? But deep down inside, I think a lot of times kids do have a lot of unexpressed anxiety. And so, a lot of times they can come out as not wanting to obey you, or maybe they're having more temper tantrums, or maybe they're just being a little more passive, or they could even come out as people pleasing. Like if a kid's like trying to just please you all the time and be right there and do everything, they tend to feel that anxiety and that tension, and those kids like hide how much they're going to try to please and do for you. So that's another sign that kids actually experiencing anxiety. And a lot of times we negate that because we think, oh, they're just such good kids, and look at that. But think of your kid, whichever way they tend to go, and when it gets to an extreme, that's that something's off within them. And so if something's off balance, then I encourage you to sit down and have a talk with them and to find out what's going on, because it's better to navigate those emotions and those feelings now rather than later on, because they just, we just bundle them up. And I know as myself as a child, like I just stuffed everything, so that didn't do me any good, because then you have to deal with them as an adult, and that's no fun. So you might know that too. And then I'm going to do a couple things that I think I've been really thinking about what I could do for this group, how I could show up for this group, and what you guys might need. And how I could just be a blessing to you during this time. And so I've thought of a couple ways, and you guys give me your feedback, but these are kind of my couple ideas for now, and hopefully I'll have more in the future. Nerdy on you now. But the one thing that I was thinking of is I know a lot of you have kids at home, and that kids during this time, like I said, it's a great time to talk about like character development or talk about those kind of struggles or those things like that. And so I was thinking that I could do a story time with Jen on here every day, and it would be honestly for like younger ones, like probably second grade and under, maybe third grade. You could get the older ones to watch too, because they love making fun of teachers like me after that age, which is totally cool because they'll still learn something. But anyway, I thought the younger ones are probably the ones who you need just to sit down and have like a little story time just to break away. And so I'm going to put some times up that would come on daily and just give me like 30 minutes with your kids. And I promise you, I was a school teacher for 16 years, so I got them. And just do a story and then just do some kind of character development or some kind of way to talk through some kind of feelings or something. So let me know if that's something that interests you. And then another thing that I was thinking of, so I've been writing some courses that I could put out there just for learning and different things that I could just kind of put out there and people could do at their own pace. I have something I'm going to lead through, but it's a few. And there's one that I just got done writing, and it's called Stronger Than the Storm. Not about fighting the storm, but navigating when you cannot see. And it's a 10-part course. And so I thought I'd come on here live every day. I'm thinking around like 10 a.m. And rather than, I was just going to record the videos, because I was going to record the videos that I could pop them in the e-learning. I thought rather than just recording them, I'd come on here and actually do them live for you guys and give you the course, just kind of do the course with you guys as I record it to put it into a course I'm going to sell. And because I think right now that's really something that we all need, is how do we navigate during this time when we don't know the outcome, when we don't know what's going to happen. And how do we come out on the other side not being up by the storm or taken under, And there's things that we can do to make that happen. So let me know. I'm going to post both those up. You guys kind of vote and let me know about times and stuff. But I hope that's something that will be a blessing to you. And if you can think of anything else I can do, let me know. One other thing I'm going to put in my cell phone number on here is if you will text me your address. I have something I'd like to send each one of you. It's nothing big, but it's something. And I think sometimes we can all use like a little touch. And so I know like you're like, oh, I'll give you your address. I'm not going to spam you or send you like any odd things, but I would just like to reach out in some way, in some tangible way. And it's the best way that I can think to do right now, because I'm not sure how to show up for you guys anymore. And so my heart extended, if you would, or you can even just message me on here on Messenger and let me know what your address is if you want. And if you don't, like, I totally respect that. But I'd like to be there for you. So let's get into unpacking fear. And if we look back, fear has been around forever, right? And so learning to overcome this fear is part of really learning to navigate through life. And I think unpacking the autonomy of fear is really important before we can actually tackle what to do about it. And so let's look at what fear does to our kind of brain. And so I think the first stop, like on the journey, if I look at like it, right, fear comes into our brains. Fear is technically known as an emotion, and it affects our mental, emotional, and actual physical health. So like it affects everything. So when we feel fear, the amygdala, which is found like in the center of our brain, it merely sends out signals, okay, to our autonomic nerve system to start like a cascade of different responses. And these generally include things like rising heart rate, higher blood pressure, faster breathing, a release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Blood begins to flow away from the heart and towards our legs and arms, preparing you to escape danger or to fight opposing threats. So we become that fight or flight stance. But what is even more detrimental is the psychological fear response. It essentially shuts down our brains like reasoning and judgment center. And so when the amygdala kicks in to respond to fear, other parts of our brain lose the resources allowed to operate effectively, ultimately. And the longer we're feeling this fear or this stress, the more impaired our judgment and reason becomes, which is right. So it's hard to remain like clear-headed like during a crisis. And I think anyone can say that, even if we think about it, anger is a source of fear. And so if you get into arguments with your spouse or something, a lot of times you'll say things and do things you really don't mean. And it's because you're shut down, just that other part. So, but if we go even beyond that, so beyond the acute symptoms, right? If we have that fear, and then there's also anxiety, right? Which is also known as like fear or like an unknown threat. So it gets into like even deeper. And anxiety is essentially fearing something that has not happened, that may never happen, that could happen, or that you hope does not occur. And that's how it differs from fear, which is in response to a known or understood threat. So fear, a known or understood threat. Anxiety takes it a step further, going, what if it could be? I don't know if this is going to happen. Oh my goodness. And so even though anxiety doesn't differ that much, the response it produces in the body is the main key. So both emotions produce stress. It produces a stress response in which the brain and throughout the body is really detrimental to our entire health. But when we experience anxiety, and I thought this was really interesting that I found out, our psychological response is more diffuse and vague, but the effects on the body are very real. So, for example, instead of the racing heart rate, we'll get genuine fear. So anxiety produces muscle tension, which can last for hours and days, depending on how long we focus on those anxious feelings. And anxieties result in like headaches and change in sleep patterns and tightness of the head, the neck, the jaw, the face, ringing in the ears, and even numbness or tingling. I thought those were really good things because sometimes, I never thought of this as a teacher. Sometimes I'd have the kid would be like, I have ringing in my ears, and I would never know like what. I was like, do you have an ear infection? But I wonder, like, maybe that was a sense that they were having some anxiety. And so I think that's really powerful to know. Anxious feelings normally don't pass quickly, so we could experiencing those symptoms for a really long time. And fear and anxiety, they are related, obviously. Like, you have to start with fear right before you're going to get to anxiety. So if you're afraid of something, you can develop those anxious feelings about them occurring then. But anxiety, in a sense, too, can also stem from reliving past fears. So they're both unhealthy for us, and learning how to control them, I think, is really essential, especially during this time. And so there's really a few different types of fears. When I unpack this, there are a few different types of fears I think were important for us to know. So there's extinction fears, which is the most basic fear of ceasing to exist, and the many things that cause us not to be here anymore. And that fear of death, I think, really can be a root of a lot of people's fears. And even when it comes to these things of, well, what happens if, or if I'm no longer, what happens if I get it? What happens if someone I love gets it? All those kind of things. But these fears can also be related to like the dark, flying, any of those kind of things. Because I think, if you fear of those things, then you also it kind of spills over into the fact of like fear of like not being here anymore, and fear of existence. And so, there we go. Okay. And then, mutation fears, which is another group of fears where we fear being attacked or being physically unsafe. So these fears, we fear an invasion of like personal boundaries, loss of a limb, body part, those being unable to perform our natural functions. So I say that's my fear of like skiing. I'm always like, if I ski, I'm going to hit a tree and I won't be able to function in life. So I'm sure I must have a mutation fear there. But among these groups is anything from being attacked from anything at all. And so if we think of those first two categories, they're on the Maslow laws of safety and security, right? So until those needs are met, it's difficult to feel safe or let go of fears that may be plaguing you. So if those fears exist, what you're experiencing now is going to be all the more heightened because those are the underlying things. And then the next one is fear of losing autonomy. So that's lack of being involved movement or being like imprisoned in some way, or relates to losing oneself in a relationship. It can also come with aging or any anxieties about the ability to live the life that you choose. And we see that a lot of time in elderly, as we have to like put them in nursing homes and those kind of things. and someone who's been paralyzed, being confined, being powerless. And I think kind of even right now we're feeling that because we're all feeling like we're losing like our freedom to be us right now. And so I think there's a good portion of that goes in there right now, because we're not able to actually live the life we choose if we really think about it right now. And then the next one would be abandonment fears, which is our strong psychological needs to feel like we belong and we're valued. So this is the fears of like being rejected or abandoned by others. And we find this fear like upsetting people with anxieties about being liked, becoming divorced, feeling vulnerable with others, fearing intimacy if you just start to rely on someone too much, and ending up alone in life. I definitely had that one because I got married because I was scared I was going to be all alone, and like dated people forever because I was scared I just couldn't handle being alone for the longest time. So that plays out in a lot of ways. I think even now that can play out because some of us are fearful of like jobs, right? I think that's a huge thing right now. There's lots of people who, I even heard a story today of someone who moved to Dallas, and he had just got done with college and stuff, and he moved and he was just going to start up a job. He got here and he got a message from the work saying, none of us are coming to work. We don't have anything for you right now. Maybe next month. And so he has this apartment he can't pay for now. He doesn't have insurance, doesn't have a job. He's kind of in this place of, do I move back home or do I wait this out? I moved all the way here. And so those fears are really, that's a legitimate fear to have right now. Or if you are, if you work and get paid by the hour, I think there's a lot of that too right now. And so I hope that's no one here, but with this big of a group of people, I'm sure that's some of you. So please let me know if that is you, because I care. It's hard. So fears of worthlessness would be the next one. It's kind of like known as the ego death, because it stands for kind of all things we fear about our own ability to self-actualize. So when we're afraid of shame, humiliation, being unworthy of happiness, you can't fully realize your full potential. And the many fears in this category is the fear of failure, fear of being bullied, criticized, being shamed for your lack of ability, generally feeling unworthy in a successful world. And that, again, ties to Maslow's highest need of levels, which include the ability to achieve our highest potential in life. And I think somehow, I bet you all of us, at some point during grade school, we experienced that. If you didn't, I'd love to talk to you. But I think even the workplace, it's a cool place out there, isn't it? And so I think a lot of times we're made to feel unworthy. And sometimes I think that shame and humiliation really take over. And I think a lot of times during times of fear and stuff, things that are fear points in our life, maybe fear of worthiness, maybe it's not like right now caused, but if we have that in our life, I think it comes alive during a time of fear. I think they all kind of just come together. And if you're someone who has a multitude of these, then you're probably experiencing like a fear storm right now. And that's extremely hard, and that's extremely real. And I can see how that would be thrown into anxiety and anxiety attacks. And what do I do about this? I want to have faith, Jen. I want to believe this good. I want to do good for my family, but I can't control this. And I get that. And I'm hoping to give you some tools to help you navigate through that. Not that it's an answer to all. I don't claim to know it all. But I'm just hoping to provide you with some tools. And if you're really struggling, please let me know. Would love to help navigate that through with you however I can during this time, or at least get you connected to someone maybe who can. If I can, I'm happy to connect you with someone who can. So in the grand scheme, okay, we know that. So what does this mean for me? So because there are technically only 5 types of fears, once you name the root of your anxiety, right, it becomes easier to do something about your concerns and address your fearful behaviors. So I want you to think of like that list and think of the number one. If I would say, what's your number one right now? I think that's important for you to identify. Or what's the biggest one that keeps coming up over and over and over again in your life? If you have one, hi Amy. If you have one and one over again out of those 5 different fears, what would be the one that's screaming the loudest to you right now? Because it's hard to unpack if you say, well, I have all 5. That's kind of more difficult to unpack all at once. We want to take this in baby steps and not overwhelm ourselves. So an example would be, this was a good example I found. And so if you're feeling jealous towards someone else, right, that could be caused by a fear of abandonment. You fear your partner will like someone else more than you do, therefore you feel jealous towards a third party. Knowing your jealousy stems from this fear can help you evaluate the basis for the fear to determine if it's rational or not, which enables you to respond more appropriately. Because remember, anxiety is stemmed from the unknown, right? So if we can unpack it and go, is this a rational one or is it not? And so I think that really helps kind of take yourself kind of out of it for a moment, look at it as someone who's looking into even someone else's life. You know, we're so good at giving opinions to other people. So if we can step back and actually look at it from a different angle, I think that's really, really, really helpful. And now there are, of course, there's some fears that are necessary for safety and security. And much of what we're afraid of serves, absolutely, survival needs or survival instincts. But some of them really, really aren't, and some of them are started that way, but they're blown up out of proportion a lot of times. If we really think of them, we take in something that is a bit true, and we've built upon it so much that it's led into that anxiety and to that where we're almost paralyzed again. So really, then after we do that, we unpack and we look at it from far away, right? And decide what's truth, what's not here. We need to look at our behaviors. What are the things that we're doing in the midst of that? So take a step back and try to picture yourself looking in, and what are the things you're doing? What are those behaviors that are showing your fear or your anxiety? How do you act them out? People act out them differently, I find. I mean, some people are going to withdraw, right? Some people are going to get very, very angry. Some people are going to get very, very critical of everybody else around them. So really unpacking, really doing some self-work is so important when it comes to these things. We have to discover ourselves. And sometimes it's not fun to do that because we have to be so real with ourselves. That's my brutally honest thing again. But it's really freeing when you actually realize what's really going on. You can actually see yourself for what it is. It's freeing because now you're empowered. Because now you're like, oh my gosh, that's why I respond to my husband like that every time that I come home from work after a stressful day, or every time I've been with the kids and they've been, we've had just a rough day. He comes home and that's why I respond to him that way. And unpacking those things are just essential. So I think there's two going on from that is that I have to hit up here. Something else I came across, and I think that's really relevant, is that sometimes fear freezes us in the past. And I found out a lot about this, and because it interests me so much because I think I've dealt with this a lot. So one way that fear can influence our behavior is keeping us stuck in the past, reliving and fixing on wrongs or hurts we've suffered from old disappointments and failures. So when we allow this to happen, we're no longer living in the present or engaging in the formation of our future, right? It's keeping us from moving forward. So being stuck in the past is an unhealthy coping mechanism, obviously. And that's where fear can be really rooted and keep us from moving forward and possibly falling back again into old ways or ending up worse off in the current situation. Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but I've had it happen where I'm like, I thought I'm doing better. And then all of a sudden I look back, I'm way worse than I was before. What happened? And because we haven't dealt with that fear, we haven't dealt with that source. And so I think sometimes we're so afraid of moving forward or letting go even that we fixate on happy things from our past. For example, reliving how wonderful your old job was that you lost unexpectedly can keep us from trying to find a newer job or something we might enjoy even more just as much. And, in that case, we're not worried about losing the job. We're worried about not finding anything like it that we had before. And that's just kind of weird, too. If we live in the glory days of, high school and football or wherever your football star. For me, high school, I would never go back there. But some people, that was their time. And they relived that. Nothing's going to compare to that. And so that's another thing that we just latch onto. So we have to learn, no matter what, to let go of the past, because the past is the past, and we can look back on it with appreciation for what it was, whether it was something we learned from it because it was a hardship and we came out stronger, we learned a life lesson, or it crafted us into the individual we are today, Or we can look back and go, man, I'm really thankful for those memories. I'm really thankful for those times that I can have this appreciation from. But they don't define us today because ultimately they're not fully who we are today. We evolve over time. And so to live present, I think, is really a huge antidote to fears, to learn to let go and live in the present moment. And that's really easier said than done. And the question has come up before with people I speak to, and they're like, well, isn't worry though productive, and fear productive, those kind of things. And not all worry is unproductive. The thing is, knowing the difference between being productive and unproductive with worry can help us manage, I think, the anxiety and really help our emotional well-being. So unproductive worry is because it does not or cannot result in like an action. If we're unproductively worrying, we're paralyzed. So think about it, like it's something that's not moving us forward. Sometimes worrying can be a sense of, kind of a kick in the rear end, right? Because we're like, got to get moving here. I've been slacking. Now I'm having anxiety because I haven't been up on top of my game. So sometimes, I think there can be that productive worry. But if we look at unproductive worry, they can control aspects of our lives, like refusing to accept the negative experiences in our life and needing approval from others to be happy. And here was a hit hard. Perfectionism is a form of unproductive worry too. I'm like, ouch. And what do all these things have in common? They represent that expending energy does not actually benefit us or help us solve the problem. So this type of anxiety represents negative thinking, and once completely leaves us in the exact same or maybe even a worse position than when we started. So when is worry actually productive? Let's look at that a little bit more. So productive worry is the concern and thought about things you can change and you can't control. So productive worry helps you solve a problem, resolve some situation. It's worry that's focused on the situation, not an emotion. So situational, not emotional. And it's not focused on a narrow solution or a set of parameters that must be adhered to. There's that perfectionism. Unproductive worries focus on possibilities that have not happened yet. Productive focus on ways to resolve problems we actually face today. So productive worry is also acute, lasting long enough to address the issue at hand, while unproductive worry is often chronic because there is no real endpoint to it. Productive anxiety leads us to action plans, a list of things to do, and a goal to look to accomplish. So if we think of, can we turn unproductive worry into a productive one? So that was my big thing. Once I was researching, I'm like, can we actually? Then I went down this tangent of I wonder if we can actually turn it. And, let's say you've been thinking about, the house burning down, right? You dream about all the possibilities. You spend time every day wondering what would happen to your children or your pets. Are you still focused on what if the possibility occurs? So you can turn this anxiety, I guess, into a productive set of actions instead. So remember, emotions versus actions. So if we can actually take that worry from an emotional state to an action state, then I believe that we can do that. But I think it's really easy to fall back into the emotional thing. So I'm not really sure to say whether there's conflicting research out there. So I'm just kind of giving you my kind of overall from what I found. But the best thing to do, I guess, is to make a list. Love list. Make a checklist. Smoke check, checking batteries, formulate exit plan. Taking action, tends to help alleviate our fears. And then you can move on once you feel confident that you have prevented the tragedy from happening. But the key is, can you move on? And I think sometimes I've even, there's been times in my life where I think I've maybe, hi Craig, maybe there's been times I've turned my worry, unproductive worry into productive worry, and made my action list and got it done just to get it done and to fall right back into unproductive worry. And so I think there's a fine line there if we can, but we have to keep away from that emotional. So turning this fear and anxiety into positive action. So I think for nearly every unproductive worry, okay, there's a way to turn it into a plan of action. If there is not, then it means it's so unlikely to happen and so far out of the sphere of influence that's really not worth our time and mental, effort to fret over. I think we can actually notice that, like if we take that step back and go, okay, which one of the 5 of my fears is happening, it's causing it, and look at it from an actual like third person view and see what's true and what's not true. And I know my life, when I've done that, sometimes it's almost hilarious as to what I'm actually thinking, and like picturing up is going to happen. I'm like, Jen, that's so like out there. You've got to give me a break here. So some things that we can do to manage our anxieties, though. Manage it in general, and then we'll talk about like some things we can do when we're in an anxious state. So setting reminders on our phone, so like we're get continually anxious about like what we're going to forget, or what we're going to miss, or that we're not going to do this. Saying those reminders, like setting ourselves up. If I know I'm an anxious person, if I know I have like anxiety at certain points of the day because I'm scared I'm going to forget something, or the mornings like I'm not going to remember everything for the kids, or remember to do this. Saying those reminders up on the phones, that we have phones right now, so it's a great thing to do just to alleviate that. Just make sure you put in the notes what the alarm is for going off. I usually wonder why you have an alarm set if you're anything like me. And then another thing they said is take photos of things you worry about to assure your mind that you have nothing to fear. I thought that was an interesting one. For example, if you worry about leaving the door unlocked, take a picture of the locked door as you leave the house each day. Like, take a picture saying that you locked it. If you are someone who's driving down the road and constantly think that, did I do this? I think this is really good, too. I wish I would have known this one, but I think this would be really good for any kind of, like, if you have an autistic kid or a kid who deals with a lot of high worry and anxiety, and they question things and like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this, and they have to mull over their mind until they know it's done. Like, having that picture cue each day might be really helpful for them. So if you have a friend or someone, I think that would be a good take for them. And then use time limits for unproductive fears. So if you need to worry about peace, like in the Middle East or, or whatever, they use that one, then, give yourself 10 minutes every week to worry about it. So if you have something that you're continually worrying about, they said, like, set a timer and, like, worry about it for that time, and then you're done. You can't worry about it anymore. I remember one of the things I had in my classroom was that you could be upset for anything. Like, you could be totally mad and outraged and upset for 30 seconds. You had 30 seconds. It was my 30 second upset. Like, if something happened, you had 30 seconds. You could be angry, go tear up some paper, but then after 30 seconds, like, we had to sit down and talk about it. We had to figure things out. And just giving them that chance to, like, express and release, it helped them. Like, they felt like they could actually express, and then they were calm enough to actually sit down and maybe evaluate what happened from a clear, or at least clearer mind, I guess you could say, at least more open to things. Where if I wouldn't do that, they're so shut down because they're just thinking about how outraged they are, which is really just fear, right? Anger. And then schedule a time to really, I think, journal and really think through your anxieties and what you need to let go of. When I got a divorce, I went and took a weekend to myself, and I made this whole little kind of like, I guess you could say, scrapbook type thing of things I need to let go. I call it my letting go book, and it was just, I unpacked things from all the way from childhood, of things that I had been holding on to, and I even wrote like letters to people who if I could write them a letter, what I would say to them, even to like my siblings and stuff. And it was one of the most freeing things I've ever done for myself. And since I've done that a few other times when I've just needed to let go of some things that were just really heavy and really holding me back. Because a lot of times if we need to let go of something, it comes out in the anxiety and that fear. So this would be a really good time if you don't journal, to pick up a journal and start journaling. It's a great time to really start reflecting, take those thoughts and put them out and let them be expressed. Because those emotions, if we don't let them be expressed, if we don't allow those thoughts to come out in some way, they're going to come out in another way, normally unhealthy. And so remember, what we do each day is really what is going to determine what happens in the future. So if we don't start unpacking these things today, as we're more isolated, as we're, told we need to stay in longer, as this, I know right now, for me, anything I've had through the March is canceled. Like, through March 31st, it's completely canceled, and I wasn't expecting that, and so who knows how long this is going to go on for. And so I think it's really important that we start unpacking these things now and not in 2 weeks when they're going to be it's just going to be high, and we're just going to be piling, and at that point, we're going to be burnt out, and we're not going to have patience for anybody or anything. And so I really feel like if we don't start doing this now, that's why I'm kind of having this conversation now, because I really feel like it's timely for us to start saying, okay, what can I do now to start dealing with my fear and my anxiety? Because I know if I don't do it now, it's just going to make things worse later. And what can I do to help my kids start, dealing with maybe fear and anxiety or, uncertainty? Because some kids like to know, well, when am I going back to school? Like, what's going to happen? Like, what's going to happen? And kids who really are studious and really, want those grades, or maybe they really miss their teacher. That could be an anxiety separation because that teacher was a sense of rock for them and that teacher's not there. And so there's so many things that could kind of come into that. Or if you're someone who maybe is divorced and they're with you some time, with dad some of the time, maybe there's a lot of change going back and forth there, and that's not always healthy. And I know that, like, sometimes you have a spouse who doesn't have the same rules as you, or maybe isn't as supportive as you, and that child maybe comes back a different person. And we saw that all the time as teachers. I saw that constantly, and navigating through that and helping that kid navigate through that, I think that's really important. So keep in mind, like, open communication, open ground during this time in your families, I think is really, really important. And I can't express, like, letting go of that past, unpacking like I did. Maybe make yourself a letting go book or something. Unpack the things that you've been holding on to. If you have any bitterness or grudges or any really big pain points, the power of letting go is something that's, we can't do anything about what happened to us, or even what we did. We can go apologize and stuff, but we can't really change the past, can we? And so to let it control us now is really on our shoulders. We can't blame anybody else, say that that's their fault because they did this to me or whatever. It's really, we carry it with us if we want, or we choose to let it go. And when we let it go, we can see how we can bring in, be a part of our story as a way that we can serve others. And that's where the power is. I think we turn our mess into our message to help others. And we can't ultimately do that until we've dealt with it ourselves. So, and then make a list of your fears. Like, what are the things that you really fear? What are the things that really keep you up at night continually besides this? Obviously this is one of them, but I bet if we unpack, there's things that are similar or on some level, and really start making that list and start working those lists and really doing that. Okay, which one of these fears is it? And then take that step back. What's legit, what's not, or what's the legit piece in this, and what can I do about that? Is there an action plan I could take? Is there something I could set up for myself? Or is there some way that I can navigate through that? So, in conclusion with this part, I think learning to understand fear is the key of letting go and living a life of, not being afraid, or recognizing when we are and what to do about it. So, fear is not like this evil force waiting in the dark to take us over. It's simply information. Fear and anxiety are telling us something about how our mind is working, about what lives in our subconscious mind, right, and thoughts, and what's important to us, because those fears, if you're scared about your kids in many regards, then your kids are really important to you. So when we start fearing fear, right, we can start paying attention to it, and we can listen to the information that's actually telling us. And really, only you can decide if you're ready for this. And once you decide, you can take back, believe the reins from the anxieties and fear lead us away from our best selves. So, remember, you're much more powerful than any fear or anxiety that we experience. And we don't have to live in the fear. We can opt for a different way of experiencing life if we, we'll open ourselves up to. And I'm saying that from a place of someone who knows, from someone who has really struggled within the past, who really had just some really deep anxiety issues and fear issues, from someone who really couldn't come and talk to you from a place of, even just a few years ago on this. It's taken me a long time to figure and navigate this one out, but that power of letting go and power of, like, becoming that third person looking in and recognizing it and then kind of actually seeing what it is, really were the key things that empowered me. Is when I realized, wait a minute, I can do something about this. And then realizing that, fear and faith are just like weeds, and grass, soil, soil and rain, right, make weeds and grass grow. Well, the same thing, the uncertainty makes fear and faith grow, and it's what we choose to actually pluck out. And we want to be plucking out that fear and allowing that faith, to actually come alive and hold on to what we can change, what we can become, what we can navigate through, and teaching our kids that's the way to navigate through this. I want you to hear me, though. I'm not saying avoidance. I hope you hear me there. I'm not saying, not all am I saying stuff this down, avoid it, get over it, be tough. Now, it would be Jen's old way of dealing with things. Not successful, will lead you worse off, so don't do that. I'm saying deal with this in a healthy way. If you know, so I'm saying evaluate it. Dig in deep, journal about it. Like, figure out, unpack it, talk about it. And figure out the truth behind it. Because unless we do that and let go, because unless we do those kind of things, it'll always be there haunting us. We can never stuff things down enough, right? We can never truly make that happen. And so I hope you truly hear me in that. So let's go through the 40 ways to calm anxiety real quick. So I know this is a longer one, but I think it's good stuff. All right, so ready? Here are my 40 ways. So the 4-4-4, okay, so this is a breathing technique that's really grown popular in the last 4 years. It's fairly simple, okay? You count to 4 at each stage of your breathing. So on the inhale, you count to 4, hold it in for 4, and then count another 4 as you exhale, okay? And repeat this cycle 3 times and pause in between each cycle. This was really good. I used to do this to calm kids down in my classroom. Great for your kids, too. 3-3-3 is another way, so it's completely different than 4-4. So first you take a look around at yourself and name 3 things that you see, okay? So look around, 3 things that you see. Now name the first 3 sounds you notice, okay? And then lastly, move 3 different parts of the body, maybe your finger, toes, and ankles. This mental trick will help you center yourself and haul you back into the present where your brain is going a million miles an hour. I love that one. I wish I would have known this one as a teacher. So that would be a good one to do with your kids too. Like, what 3 things do you see? What 3 things do you hear? Move 3 parts of your body. Ooh, that's so much fun. I have to do that one myself. Okay, belly breathing. So this is an alternative breathing exercise. So one of the most common symptoms of anxiety is difficulty breathing, right? So the key is remaining calm, letting that breath out. So before you even inhale for a deep breath, exhale out, so you let all the air out first. This involves your hands. So you'd be surprised to learn how many people are breathing wrong. You place your hand on your chest, right, and the other one on your abdomen. Gently sigh through your open mouth and allow your upper body to relax as you release the initial breath. Now take a pause with your mouth closed. Inhale for 4 counts through your nose. Pause for 4. Count for 4 again as you exhale through the mouth. Make sure you pause before you repeat the cycle. So it's interesting, like the 4-4-4 to another level. I'll put this all too, and so you guys have it like ran out. Number 4, shut it all out. So if you start feeling anxious, you would do well to shut the world out by simply closing your eyes. And see, autistic kids, this was really good with, because when they were get overwhelmed, like just closing their eyes, just get shutting out the world, like just having them closed or just putting something up against them was really helpful. But because there was their anxiety that was high, so it's really just what it does. So the purpose of the exercise is to block out the overstimulation that's fueled by your feelings of anxiousness in the first place. So the idea is like hitting a reset button, like just to block it out. So it really does work. Like your kids, that would be a good one for too. So get up 10 minutes earlier. So set your alarm for 10 minutes earlier than you normally do. It might sound awful. And it might even be awful initially, but it's really a great way to start your day off. The majority of it's snooze, right? And just try to stay in bed as long as we possibly can. So our morning sets us up for a day ultimately. So a late day just leads to more stress and anxiety, right? So if we can actually choose to calm into the day, it really helps. So those 10 minutes can actually make a really big difference. You have time, and if you're into like meditation or mindfulness or anything like that, or yoga, that's a great time to do some of that. A happy place. This is really nice. What is the most positive memory or sense of a picture like you can get of something? Close your eyes and drink it in. One study found that just looking at a lovely nature scene for 10 seconds 3 times a day can actually help you reframe your focus to feel gratitude for the good that things are happening around you. So I think that's a good one. Maybe we could all use at this point to have a happy place. And I think that's a lot of Tony Robbins there too. Tony Robbins talks about state a lot, and like not just seeing it, but actually feeling it and getting your body into that and changing your state. So smile. I mean, smiling, yeah, you can't help, but if you smile, of course it's going to change, right? There's nothing worse than having someone else to tell you to smile, right? Would you smile? Especially if you're stressed out. However, if you're feeling anxious, force yourself to smile. And actually will boost you. no caffeine. So if you are anxious, we create it with exhaustion, right? And we reach for a cup of caffeine or, coffee. Don't, as delicious and nice as energy boost is, caffeine can be a major contributor to panic attacks and anxiety. It also sends your adrenaline to your system crazy. So next time you feel anxious, think about coffee as a good way to deal with it. Try green tea or something else. Okay, close those tabs. So do you feel anxious often at work or when you're on your computer? Do you also have an endless array of tabs open on your desktop? If you aren't actively working on them, close them. Honestly, the sight of those tabs can be a reminder of how much work you have to do. Simple things, right? Have a snack. Okay, normally when a snack is suggested, you're told for something healthy. And they recommended here that the recommendation is not to dictate the type of snack you choose. I thought this was interesting. I'm like, I tell you, like, have something like some carbs and protein. I'm like, that would do it. But they said honestly, like research shows, like, don't dictate what kind of snack. Not that you can use like having anxiety all the time to have like a chocolate all the time, ladies. They said what we do advise though is that what you snack should look and feel like how you want to, which I thought was really interesting. So choose something that smells amazing, has delicious texture. Ideally, you can eat slowly and savor. So, like, think of something that you would do that. But I thought that was interesting. So there's your out if you like chocolate, ladies. Okay, sequence it. So if you feel anxious and if you're worried you may experience a panic attack, then use this sequence for calm. 1, acknowledge the symptoms. 2, ground yourself by planting your feet and holding on to something. 3, put yourself in the present. Panic attacks typically stem from anxiety about an event that already happened or something that might happen. And then do one of those breathing exercises. Drink a cool glass of water. Close your eyes, count to 10, and then repeat them again if it's not sufficient. So if you feel yourself going into a full-blown anxiety attack, like, notice how that combines a lot of those things and puts it in a sequential order. I think it's really good. That's good for kids who are about to like have a breakdown too. Be present. One of the most effective ways to manage anxiety is to focus on the present. Anxiety is about things that aren't happening or that could happen, right? And so a great way is just to look at something that's going on, like your kids, and really just suddenly fully engage with what they're doing. You're fully engaged with, your animal, or fully engaged with something going on. Force yourself to be present. Mindfulness and meditation are not one and the same. However, you can meditate mindfully. Mindfulness is simply a way to force yourself to bring in the present moment all the time. So just think of everything you might have missed because you're too busy worrying about the future. Think of all the opportunities. We had a gadget in our face, right, is another one. But just practice that. Living in mindfulness, just living in the present, is a way that we can really calm down and not have so many anxieties, so many worries, because there's anxiety and worry, right? Something that's not happened yet. And so that's known. Lemon balm. So you can find a tea, a capsule. So lemon balm can actually help you manage anxiety and sleep issues. If you experience moments of anxiousness, brew yourself a lemon balm tea and take 5 minutes and enjoy some calm. So I did not know that one. Pet time. Of course, pets are always calming anxiety. So if you're lucky enough to have a pet, focus on your pet. Pets have a way of like healing and being there. Take a walk is another way. This is a big one for me. I'm a big nature person. For some reason, when I connect with nature, it calms me. So take a walk, stepping outside. Sometimes we're locked inside too much, especially now. Exercise. I'm telling you, exercise is huge. There's nothing better for me than after really like a rough day, man, going for a run, man, it would just, then I'd be okay. Then I'd be okay to like come home when I was like married, like go for a run, knock it out, and like, it was okay, come home. And no one would get the brunt of like my stressful day because I'd let it out of my anxiety about the next day, of this day when this was going to flow into the next day, or what about this kid? And so that's huge. Plan an escape. If you're someone who has anxiety, right? Feeling overly anxious, why not plan a summer vacation or a weekend outing? Just taking time to yourself and caring for yourself, and having something to look forward to, like a pleasant experience, gives you a distraction, something that's actually in the future that you can focus on that's beneficial. So laugh it up. Find some comedy. Like find a comedy podcast or put on a sitcom. let's face it, if laughter and, laughter is like smiling. You can't really live in the place of like anxiety. And then bust false alarms. So take a moment and work through what's actually causing you anxiety. And I think this is the most healthy thing to do at the moment. Just because your chest feels tight doesn't mean it's a heart attack. Try imagining your negative thoughts as a train. Every train, right, makes a multitude of stops. But you don't have to disembark on every one. So let those negative, anxiety-driven thoughts fly by as you pass by those stops. So choose wisely which ones you're going to pick up, I thought that was a good kind of visualization. A grain of salt. So, margaritas. A lot of anxieties and experience are a result of something someone else tells us, and we can't believe everything that we hear, especially nowadays. Like, I think this is big for now. We can't believe all the news and stuff. I mean, some of it's true, but some of it's blown way out of proportion. So give anything kind of a grain of salt. Like, some of it's true, but some of it's not. Like, don't take it to the extreme. Consider those. I gave you guys the other day two really good sources to get your news information from. Make sure you're listening to those and not to the other things. Consider your future. Future diary is what they recommend. It's a great exercise to help you remove your anxious thoughts and feelings. Just write about your future you want. And then 23, I know I'm going through this, you guys. We got this, you guys. Worry time. So this is a proactive approach. If you know that your entire day can be derailed by anxious thoughts, then make a plan to face them head on. Schedule 10 minutes to battle those worries directly. So think about when you most commonly experience anxiousness, thoughts, and plan for this before, and make it early in the day, okay? Around lunch or later, whatever is going to happen. At that point, take that amount of time for your worry time, 10 minutes, or 30 seconds, like I used to do with my kids, 30 seconds. Live in that worry and then, let it be done. So living in that moment. Okay, 24, apply compassion. So if you're thinking, we're not defined by our feelings or our thoughts, right? When we experience thoughts or feelings of anxiety, it's easy to kind of go into the self-loathing. So when you feel this happening, ask yourself, whether you can handle those thoughts with actual compassion. As uncomfortable as it may be to experience those sensations, is necessary to live with anxiety. So really, we have to ask ourselves, can I feel this? Can I live with this in compassion, and learning to live in compassion with it? I think that's really important. Lavender. I love essential oils, okay? I have essential oil guides like nothing else. If you guys need essential oil guides, let me know. So lavender, according to the study from Florida Atlantic University of Nursing, students inhaling oil before sitting down to take an exam experience less anxiety. So love lavender. Take a coloring break. So why not? Coloring is relaxing, and nowadays they have coloring books for us, right? So we can actually sit down to do those adult coloring books. If you don't have one, you totally need to get one. Okay, so a little Jen inside here. I have a coloring book in it, but it's positive affirmations or quotes or things, and I choose one every week. And on Sundays, my little addendum, I color one of them, and I put it up on my wall, and that's my it's kind of my motto for the week, man. And so, or you could take one, make your plan to color that week that you look at. So anyway, don't blow things out of proportion, number 27. So if your default mindset is to jump to worst case scenario, don't. Instead, take a moment to practice the breathing exercise, and then ask yourself if it's really that big of a deal. Sometimes it's just not, and sometimes we actually look at it and we realize how big of we blow things out of proportion. Just 15 minutes more. When you feel like giving up and tapping out, just push yourself for 15 minutes more. Not only your future self, thank you for it, for staying on top of your responsibilities. Pushing through will beat your anxious thoughts that you might have been battling for through for 15 minutes and not kept going. So sometimes just push yourself through. Get out. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're not, just push yourself to leave the house, okay? Change environment is what I would like to say. Get out grab some fresh air or coffee. It's kind of like the exercise, you go out for a break, but really just change your environment. Stress ball, squeeze. How many of you had a stress ball when you're in school? I had one. Find a distraction. So meditation is wonderful, but sometimes your anxiety is too great to focus on meditation, right? So when it comes to this point, a distraction is a must. Find something to do that will help you bust through those anxious thoughts. even better for something productive, like cleaning a junk drawer. Like for me, like distractions are great when you have to like organize things. You like get really involved in like organizing your deep cleaning something. Great for that. And then another one is exaggerate. I love this one. So it may seem counterintuitive, but take your greatest fear and like exaggerate all the way. Not just a little bit, like exaggerate to like the full blown proportion. Okay. And like tell somebody, like tell someone like, I'm this and fully on. And then at some point you realize like how silly it actually sounds, and actually it'll make you laugh. And it's true. Like I've done that before. So it's true. Sometimes we can take this thing and we'll blow the way. I'm like, oh my gosh, did I just hear myself actually say that? Adopt a mantra. So it doesn't matter what you choose as long as it works for you. So you may find a multitude of different ways, like it'll all work out, take it slow, I'm a kind person. Find something that's your mantra. And like I said, I think it's important. I think a mantra is good. I think it's really would help kids out too. So, I have my mantras for different things, just help me get out of different funks, and it really works. Shades of gray. So are you a black and white thinker? Sometimes people prefer it, but if you can't see the shades of gray, then like become someone who struggles with anxiety, that black and white thinking. So feel you're self-anxious, take a look at what's driving it and create a gray side, a gray part. Take the pressure off. So we just have a few more. Feeling anxious about a presentation, an interview, or another big event. If you think if you're the only one that's obsessed on the perfect performance, the audience, the interview, the colleagues, are any of them going to really care if you slip up? Don't put so much pressure on yourself to be perfect. And I think the thing is here is that your identity isn't wrapped up in how perfect things is. If I allowed my perfectionism and my anxiety to control me, I would never get on and do these live things because I'm not going to be perfect. Are you kidding me? I mess up more times than I possibly can when I do like my stuff, but I'm okay with it now because I'm okay with me. And so sometimes that's a deeper issue to unpack if you really struggle with like being okay in your own skin. That's something else that to unpack, and that's possible to unpack because I unpacked it. Like that's possible. Let me know so I can help you. But that's totally possible. But I'd say that take the pressure off can be hard to do if you don't deal with the hard work. Get musical. Who doesn't love music? Music, I tell you, is not music something that can totally change your mood or express your mood when you're in the moment. At least I'm a very music person. So turn up the stereo, find a song. An anxiety busting list must, man. Music. Put on a song that makes you feel good or reminds you of something positive or maybe even expresses how you feel in that moment. And just, for me, just dance it off. Put on some Footloose, man. Go for it. Write it out. So that again, talking is good, but sometimes your deepest feelings are awkward, right? And you may not feel comfortable sharing with someone else, even though I hope you do. I hope you have someone in your life you can share anything with. I think that we all need that. But sometimes, I know for myself, a lot of times I need to write something down before I can express it to somebody else. And do my own kind of brain dump, I guess you could say. And so maybe just writing out get clarity, because if I try to talk to someone else about it, other times my thoughts are jumbled and all over the place. And so kind of if I didn't have notes, I'd be all over the place with my ADHD mind. And so, but just writing out and kind of actually fitting it all into a sequence, and then maybe you could actually create an action plan, right? And turn to some kind of productive worry, or you can actually talk it out with somebody. So an object to center. This object should be something you can have with you all the time. Okay, whether you can focus on when you feel anxious or have, need some kind of if you have the anxious energy or anxiety swaps your energy even by refueling your irrational thoughts, right? So choose an object that when you're in a state of calm, when you use it when you're anxious, okay? So find something that when you're in the state of calm, you use it when you're anxious to calm your thoughts. Then remind you not to worry. And a lot of times, what I like is bracelets or a necklace, right? Because I can just grasp a hold of it. So normally I have a bracelet or a necklace that, if I'm worried, it grounds me. It's something grounding. And there's even some studies with different types of just stones and stuff. If you're interested in that, I can let you know what things to do that are grounding for you. Just if you're interested in more of that angle and that end of things, I have a lot of resources for you there too. Different things you can get that are just grounding. They're really good for kids too. pressure points. So acupuncture and massage therapy are great for relieving anxiety symptoms, but you can honestly do it yourself, acupuncture. Like there's different points that you press that really help. So different areas on your body that if you apply for relief and relaxation, like one just between the eyebrows, okay, is an area an inch below the base of your skull, there between your thumb and your index finger, okay? That's a huge one. So get help. Last one, like if you really struggle with this, then if you're experiencing anxiety so often and it's impacting your relationships and life as a whole, and especially if you feel like you right now, it's so strong and you can't get a hold of it, and even the things like I put in here, I suggest we unpack, and you feel like, Jen, it's not working for me, I encourage you, like, speak to someone. Go get, go talk to your doctor. Go talk to someone who maybe can get some medical advice. And, like, I'm happy to talk to you further and see if I can help you further for sure. I'm totally here for you. Because maybe there's some deeper work that we can do with that to unpack. But if you need to, like, there's nothing. I used to be so ashamed of, like, going and asking for help or, like, having to get help from anybody. Like, I always wanted to be stronger than that and stuff. And so, I don't know. And then finally one day I was like, you know what? That's not benefiting me. That's not helping me in any way. That's not doing anything for me. I need to make progress in my life. And so once I, like, got over my pride, asking for help is not a bad thing. So, and if you need some recommendations, let me know where you live, and I'll be happy to unpack that for you and get you some credible sources that can actually help you. So, know what I can do for you. I hope that helped. I hope that served you. I hope that you got something out of it. I'm going to put all 40 of these in the area so you guys could actually have the 40 different ways. I think it's a good way for you to maybe pick a few for maybe yourself or for your family and maybe post them. And that way, when there's a moment of anyone in your family getting anxious, they go to their go-to. And that way, it's not something you try to, like, sort through the 40, like, in the moment, because it's not the best way to do it. So maybe stand with your family and go, okay, let's, from all 40 of these, like, what's going to be your go-to? And maybe choose your primary one and then your secondary one. So in case the primary one doesn't work, you have a secondary one. I'm always like, plan A, plan B. And then you guys have that as a family, and that way then you have something to actually go to, not just for now, not just for navigating now, but for life. I think things that we learned during this time, I'm hoping that there are things that we can carry through us into the rest of our lives, because they're going to make us better people if we apply them. I truly believe that. I know that's happened in my life, and I wouldn't spend so much time unpacking these things if they didn't make such a significant difference in my life and were game changers. And so know that I appreciate each one of you, and my heart is here for you. And if there's any way I can serve you, know that I truly want to be here for you. So please let me know. And I know that trust takes time. I know it's hard to trust people, and so I get that. So I'm patient, but reach out to me anytime. I'm not here with, like, alternative motives, and I really do care. And people who know me, I think, could testify to that on here. So, but as long as you need. So reach out to me. I'll be on live again tomorrow at 10 a.m. to talk about navigating through the storms of life. And like I said, I'll be a 10-part series. I'll do one each day. And then also make sure you vote on what time I can do, like, a little kids, like, 30-minute segment for younger kids, and just give you guys a break and have some fun with the kids with a book and some character development and stuff like that. I love doing that kind of stuff with kids. I have great books, and things to talk about. So hopefully that will work for you, and that'll be a blessing to you. All right, you guys, stay strong. I know it's hard. I know if you have a family you're going to be strong for, and with uncertainty, I know it's more than I could possibly imagine. And so know that I get that I don't fully understand each one of your shoes and what you're walking in, and I don't claim to, and so I don't claim to have all the answers, but know that my heart really does care, and you're in my thoughts and my prayers every single day. And genuinely, I'm going to put my cell phone number in here so that you guys can even text me if you need me, but also if you guys are, like I said in the beginning, like, I want to send you guys something, so, like, if you send me, like, your address, I promise not to spam you. I just want to send each one of you a little something just to maybe put a little smile on your face one day. Okay? All right. Love you all. Have a great evening, and reach out anytime, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you if you watch the replay. Let me know if you watch the replay, okay? All right. Talk